today's stream. A quick question, which is very interesting, based on the previous stream, is based on, have you ever had a gut feeling, maybe you are meant for something more? Interesting enough, as a young entrepreneur, this is what I've been feeling. This is what, for the past 1 year, this is what I've been feeling. And I guess this also explains why that we are here again today, despite the fact we left yesterday very late, around 7:30. For those who joined in, I think I can be able to see Anita, you are in the stream. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's live. In case you're joining for the first time, my name is Njuguna Hilary. I'm an entrepreneur based here in East Africa, building a very amazing startup in food and poultry ecosystem. So as usual, you just give me 1 minute. I'll just ensure that everything is set and everything is all good in terms of the sound. Meanwhile, feel free to introduce yourself, where you're watching from, and have you ever had that gut feeling? Maybe you're meant for more. And obviously, on today's topic, which is based on costing, financial planning, which is bringing us to the end of the business planning sessions, which again is an exciting moment because it's going to open the door for next week. And this is be on improve your businesses. And this is one of the most amazing topics I've prepared for next week. So I'm excited today. Let me know where you're watching from. Good to see you, Mesa. I've seen, Mesa Festas Mate. Thank you so much. You're saying good topic. Yeah, definitely. This is amazing, gentleman. And I know, spoiler alert, he is somewhere within this building. But he is someone who I consider like a mentor to me, because for what Afrifama is today, what we've been building for the last 3 years, I feel this gentleman deserves the flowers. But his time is coming, and I know he wouldn't even wish me to talk more, but it's good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for joining in. And again, it's also good to see Miss Tui on the stream. Please be our today's moderator on the same. And again, if you're joining this stream for the first time, please let me know where you're watching from. And do you ever have that gut feeling like you're meant for more? And in terms of financial planning, what is your take when it comes to business planning per se? If you have a business, or if you have started a small enterprise, did you go into details trying to get to know what was required as much as finances are concerned? What did you do? I would love to know your thoughts on the same as well before I get started. It's interesting because when we think about the business planning, about anything that we do in regards to our enterprises, if we are not careful in terms of how we approach the performances, then this can be either break or make your enterprise. And trust me, I've been in that situation before. It's a very interesting area, and I'm super excited. And as usual, I'll be using ILO manual, which we have been using for the last 1 month since we started this live stream. And a bit of background for this manual is for someone who is joining for the first time, I'll just do a small read up, so in case you don't wonder what it is about. So the SYB is a training program for potential entrepreneurs who have business ideas for their own small enterprises. This helps in developing a detailed business plan to actually get started. The training also provides an opportunity to test required entrepreneurial skills and business planning stimulated, or rather what we call safe environments. So technically, this is what we've been using for the last 1 month. And I just had to give backstory for the same. And it's been developed by a team of experts who have done amazing case study across entire Africa, not just sub-Saharan Africa. And that's why for me, it tends to be that anchor when I'm here, when I'm discussing from ideation phase and now today, or what we've been doing this whole week, and that is the business planning phase. So, and in case you're joining, come on, guys, let me know where you're watching from. And it wouldn't hurt to know your insights on what you expectations. Technically, for any trainer, that's what they do. But for this, I don't consider myself as a trainer. Backstory is I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I do a bit of consultancy here and there for small-scale entrepreneurs. And for me to be able to do this is something which is entirely new. Albeit we've been doing like channel for more than 3 years now, more of documenting our whole journey for enterprise. And we felt like we've been talking about poultry production, animal feeds milling, but it's only addressing one line of business. And most people would reach out and say, hey, I would love to know how you got started. How do you go about ideation? How do you go about business planning? And even some who have existing business, you hear someone say, I would love to know, how do I improve my business? So that's the backstory again for this stream, because we want to have a real life interaction whereby I don't sit behind the scenes. I talk to the camera and then I just go to record to what I think is more important to you. So for this is more of my honest opinions based on my trainings, based on my, I have like 4 or 5 years of entrepreneurship. I've also qualified, which I did entrepreneurship in uni as well, and 3 years of running Afrifama Group, which is now almost 3 companies all together. And I felt there's something we can share. But I should also mention that I don't have all the answers you're seeking for. So I'm merely speaking from what I know, what SYB is saying, trying to merge together. And of course, if we see exciting question in regards to business planning, entrepreneurship, we can be able to tackle it. It's good to see very, very good interaction. And also as Mr. Matei is saying, a very good topic. And of course, that's going in. So let's get into it, get started. And as usual today, I'll possibly take almost 45 minutes to be exact. It's a very long call. So if this is your thing, please stick around. If it's not something interesting, again, please stick around, because I believe you can learn something. And a spoiler alert, I also need to finish my shift because I'm kind of sleepy in a way. Haven't slept for almost 24 hours. Please don't ask me why, but have had a very busy schedule till late night, until this morning. And this is the beauty of entrepreneurship, you can be able to plan your hours and you can be able to get going. So one thing you need to know about the financial planning is, and this I quote ILO would say, is normally during the first few months after the business begins operating, it is difficult to recover cost or make a profit. It takes some time before money from the sales start to come in. So during this time, your business is vulnerable and you must be careful. You must keep a careful eye on the financial situation. So then they go ahead and then they ask, when you start a new business, these 2 things are very important. And the first one is, do not run out of cash. Yeah. Do not at any given moment, do not run out of cash. And then the second one, they say, make sure that operations you have created will eventually become profitable. Now, you remember when we mentioned last week that when you're beginning to do your business planning, the purpose of this is not merely writing on the wall. This is a tool that's going to guide you, that's going to help you from the first few months to even the next 3 to 4 years. And it's paramount for you to take into consideration about the finances. Because one, should you run out of working capital, and this is what we call cash, it will eventually collapse all your operations. And ultimately, if you're not careful, if eventually your business will be profitable and how long it's going to take you, then this can be confusing. So it's very essential, because you also need to know this. When you start a business, even Afrifama, when we started, you are not going to make your first profit, not the first month, not the second one, unless the business which you're involved in is on maybe buy and sell, which I have nothing against that. But if you're investing heavy, let's say, into production, like for example, what we started here with one of our parent company, that's Afrifama Feeds, we had to invest so heavily on machinery productions, setup of the warehouse, and even getting proper people, for example, for consultancy. Because I myself, I don't have a background in animal feeds, which means I need someone who has expertise. And as I mentioned in the last stream, paying for consultants for even a single minute or a single hour, it's very expensive. So if you consider all these costs, you'll be able to see something is you will spend a lot of money in the first few months of the businesses. So if we sat down and we have not projected ahead, how much in terms of the cash flows, the money that is going to be coming in into the business, then we might be trending in murky waters, whereby eventually we will sink. And as an entrepreneur, you don't want that. That is a very, very terrible step. So what do? You need to ensure that you do the proper financial planning. And we will be discussing. But at the heart of financial planning, you need to know the following. Before even we discuss profit plan, cost, cash flow plan, and as well as financial records, which again, I'll not go into details. I mentioned I plan bringing our chief accountant. This is a gentleman we went to school with. His name is David. He's an auditor. He can be able to take us through the whole auditing phase for interpreting financial records. So what I'll do for this is something very simple that can be able to help you know how to go about this. But before we got into these documents, you need to know one thing. Without understanding the costing, then there's no basis for financial planning. So this takes us back to costing your goods and services. And as usual, if you're joining for the first time, my name is Njuguna Hilary. I'm an entrepreneur based here in Coastal Region, and I discuss anything entrepreneurship, poultry farming, feed formulation. But for this stream, I usually discuss about ideation, business planning, and I also answer any question you have. So let me know what are your thoughts in regards to financial planning. Do you think it's essential or not? While on it, I want to put a very small poll, which is going to help me understand as we proceed. If any one of you, other than Mr. Mate, and it's good to see you, sir, in this stream, and Anita, I'd love to know anyone who is watching. Let me know again, where are you watching from? What's your name? What's your question? I mean, this is not even a classroom, trust me, guys. We're just having a small discussion in terms of financial planning, why is it necessary, and of course now we're about to go to costing. So for Mr. Mata, I know you're a very great entrepreneur as well as Mr. Let me know, do you currently know your cost of production? Yeah, it's just a simple yes or no. So I'll just start a poll for the same, and anyone else in this stream. So what is costing? What is costing? Costing. What is costing? I was about to go into Swahili direct, and then I remembered I have amazing people watching who have actually supported this channel outside the country. So if I use Swahili, it could have been very difficult for you. So let me know. So according to SYB again, they say costs are the money your business spends to make and sell your goods and services. Cost for business can be broadly classified as fixed cost and variable cost. So I know cost. Before even we dive deeper, I mean, we've heard about variable cost, fixed cost. It's just anything, anything you spend to make your goods, anything you spend to enable you, if you are a service delivery business, for that to happen. Any money, that's what we can consider it cost. But now when you go deep dive, then you'll realize there are more to that. There are those costs which are classified as fixed, which ultimately means they don't change over the time. While there are other costs which are classified as variable cost, which means they tend to vary in terms of the volume of production for a given enterprise, or the volume of services offered for a given enterprise, which again, we will dive deeper. So Anita, you're saying financial planning is paramount in business. It is widely considered essential for driving growth, ensuring a long-term sustainability, and avoiding failure, which is totally true. Trust me, if you start your business today, none of us in this stream wants to fail. Everyone wants to start a business today, and tomorrow or the next day, you will start getting the return. But remember, we've said, if you start your business today, you're not guaranteed that you're going to get the return the next day. So what do? That's why it's essential. First, before you do what we call financial planning, understand your cost, because your cost is what will guide you towards the financial planning. And we've said again, costing is simply what you as an entrepreneur or your business tends to use either to produce a good or a service before you now offer this to the actual consumer. So let me know, what are your thoughts, where are you watching from, and what is your question? I love this intro. Yeah, Ms. Do say something about, I don't know if this is a continuation. You're saying it involves collecting, analyzing, and allocating costs like materials, labor, overhead to determine the final cost per unit, which is used for pricing, financial reporting, which is good. So do you do it? And also remind us which business you're in and what are some of the costs are you involved in? I would love to know in terms of that. So what is a fixed cost? So fixed costs, as ILO puts, remain constant even when production volume changes, sales volume changes, or the amount of service being provided changes. These are costs such as rent, loan repayment, salaries for administration, etc. While on the variable cost is they tend to fluctuate in terms of any given production volume. So if let's say, for example, there's something we usually keep saying on economies of scales. So if your production is higher, then a certain amount of cost can actually even go higher. If it's low, then you see a certain amount of production cost shooting. So it's not really, let's say, this cost is going to remain the same. No. Unlike whereby if you pay, for example, assume you have a warehouse. If you have a warehouse at the end of the month, then you know you're going to pay a certain bill, then that doesn't change. Whether you produce 1 unit or you produce 100 units, doesn't. But for a cost such as electricity, you'll tend to see the variation whereby it's based on the use. So if you don't produce many units, then you don't get to have to pay more. So obviously, you can be able to go to classification for the same. And it's now, how do you get to know the total cost? Now, total cost is all inclusive of variable cost plus the fixed cost. And eventually, you can be able to use this once, as well Anita said before, I'll quote, the reason for getting to understand your costing fast is you're going to use this data or information to set your cost, to set your pricing. And I remember in 3 days ago, we were talking about pricing, and we ask ourselves one fundamental questions. What do you know, or how do you know what is the price of the product you're going to sell to your consumer? Or even before you go to the market, remember at this level, you're just planning for your business. How do you set the price? And I remember we talked about 3 key criteria. One, you do your market research. So one, you can be able to find what is the cost in terms of producing that specific goods. You'll be able to analyze the cost of getting the raw materials, all the variable cost involved, as what we have discussed, the fixed cost as well. And then you add all that together, and then you know your cost. Then you can be able to add your certain percentage of margins, which you want to make as a profit. And that is number one. Number two is whereby you also do your market research based on the competitors and find how much is competitor pricing this particular product. Because remember, irrespective of what you do, irrespective which market you are not the first person to go into that market. You are not the first innovator, unless you're coming with a groundbreaking innovation. So there is someone somewhere doing it, even if it's not within your county, the whole country, or even somewhere else in the world. So it's upon you as an entrepreneur, do the research, know how much are they selling for. And the last bit, which is the most important, is getting the research for doing the research based on your consumers. These are the people you are targeting, and asking them through questionnaires or through live interaction, like, how much are you willing to pay for this particular product? Then this is going to allow you to understand how much they are willing to part. And this now hence informs you with the 3 criteria you can set your price. Now, I hope that makes sense. I've seen my delivery guy is here, so let me just talk to him 1 minute. I can also use that as a water break. Meanwhile, you can also introduce yourself. Just 1 minute, guys. We need to get feeds delivered. Natumia my phone. Shipment ya baba ilikuwa inaenda sana. Just enda pale kwa warehouse. Si walikuwa wanafanya production. All right, guys, sorry about that. So it's very funny. So the delivery guy just came in. He's looking for our warehouse manager, and he's not available. But at least I know where he was. So that's the part of an entrepreneur, you know. And the fun bit is I'm seated near the window, so I get to see in and out. So, and of course, he knew I was recording. So that's a very interesting bit, and as well as a water break. Let me know where you're watching from. What are your thoughts in costing are involved, and as well as financial planning? Is it necessary, or should we just go into business and get started without necessarily understanding what are the costs involved, and again, what are the future projections? So I see, Anita, you're saying something about, so you're saying you're in clothing and manufacturing technology. Yeah, that's beautiful. And yes, I have some fixed costs I have to consider when pricing my products. So you're talking about the fabrics, accessories, and logistics. All right. Now, still on the same, because you've answered, do you categorize your costings in terms of fixed cost, variable cost, or you just do a total overhaul for the same? And again, when you got started into your business, did you take into consideration in terms of the costing? Was it essential for your business, or is it something that you got to know well along into your business? And this is not just for her as well. For anyone joining this stream, feel free. It's a rather non-judgmental stream. We are laid back. I know when I start preaching entrepreneurship, I can become something else. But for you, don't get scared, guys. It's because I love entrepreneurship and I love this thing. So how do you go now further in terms of costing? One thing we've talked about, okay, we have talked about setting prices. That is number one reason why costing is so important. The second reason why costing is very important is to reduce and control cost. So this is a very funny bit. Let's give you an example. For example, those feeds which are being delivered now. If I don't know by exact amount how much it's costing us to produce a single kg, or maybe let's say even one package, though for us we do per kg, then I'm not even in a position to be able to know at the end of every batch production, because that's what we do. So our machine can be able to handle maybe 500 kg for like 15 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes. So if I don't understand the wastages involved, then I cannot be able to control them. But with the costing, then I'm able to know, for example, and this is one thing I learned from our feeds formulation, is there are different materials which can be used to manufacture animal feeds. And most of them, for example, source of protein, you can either use canola, you can use soybean, you can use sunflower, you can as well use cotton seed cake. Their prices tends to vary just a little bit by maybe 10 shillings, 5 shillings per kg. But this is where it gets interesting. You can actually replace those protein source by either adjusting the quantity. And what happened is, assuming for this particular feeds I'm manufacturing today, I want a 14% crude protein, what we call a CP, or I want a 22% CP if it's for chicks. So I can be able, and this is based on the nutrition requirement, you can replace one product which is going to help you minimize the cost as opposed to using a certain. Because if 1 kg of soya is 100 shillings today, and 1 kg of cotton seed cake is around 60 shilling. Then it's upon for the nutrition to determine how much CP is within it's within the soya. Then how many kgs of, or how many grams of the other option can you utilize? I know it's a very complicated example to use, but I hope it makes sense. Now, the next bit why costing is essential is making better decisions about business. Today, you're planning about your business venture, which you want to implement, or you're planning about expansion. Let's be realistic. Which decision will you make if you're a serious entrepreneur if you don't consider costing, if you don't consider the cost involved into production of these goods, of these services? It's very hard. And we'll be giving some of these costs, so at least for guys who are joining in and possibly they didn't get to have a bit of background on business planning. So this is why it's so essential, because today I'll be able to make a decision and say, we are not going to produce chick mash. Why? Because, I mean, we are spending maybe so much, but then when I come into my books and then I'm able to see we're only making X profitability or we are making X loss, because it's not a guarantee. If you start a business today, you're making a profit. So it's only through these numbers. And we keep on saying, entrepreneurs, we need to be honest with ourselves. These numbers are not supposed to scare us, but they are supposed to help us plan for our businesses. That's why costing is so essential. And lastly is planning for the future, which will go later on to talk about future projection, future cash flows. We need to understand at one given point is how much are we expecting to make in the future? If we're investing this X amount of resources, if we are pulling this X amount of targets in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and even sometimes I think for businesses in 3 years is usually good for future projection. You need to know if you implement everything as you say in your business plan. Because remember, when we started writing about this business plan, you told about a beautiful idea which you want to build. You describe it so good. You talked about your potential customers. You talked about the methods which you are going to utilize, and that was in the marketing plan. You talked about what is going to cost you in terms of rolling out these plans. But one thing which will determine if you succeed or your business does not is, can this business be able to sustain itself? And the only way to answer that question is through the numbers. Numbers don't lie. Personally, I'm very lucky to have sat into different boards. This is whereby when I'm pitching, when I'm looking for money, which I seem to be constantly looking, I hope now that becomes something of the past in the coming years. So you sit on this side and you have an investor on that side. They look you straight into the eyes and they ask you, so tell us, what is your future projection in the next 2 years, 3 years? And then someone asks you, what would happen if we change this in terms of production? Now, if you don't understand your numbers, my friend, that's where you start sweating, because people who are going to invest into your ideas, the people who are coming, they need to see if you actually understand or you have the plan for the future. And that's why this is where you take a lot of timing to understand. Ms. Duo says psychological pricing. You said pricing is psychological, different prices on different clients after I do profiling. Okay, that's interesting. But then I'm curious, if you do psychological pricing, then does it mean you don't consider your cost first? because you might look at me and then let's say you said you're in clothing technology. Then if you are to sell me a product, how much, for example, a shirt do you think I'll be willing to buy? I'm sitting on the fence, because if you use it based on what you think I might buy for, if you don't really consider the cost it takes you first to produce this product, I feel you will not be doing your business an injustice. And of course, I start to be collected on the same. You also say about psychological pricing is a marketing strategy that uses certain prices to have psychological impact on consumers, making them feel, which is totally okay. I do agree with you. But then I'm curious, if you first don't understand how much it costs you in terms of the variable cost, in terms of fixed cost, and literally, later on, something will do. And I keep saying I need to start streaming using StreamYard so that I can be able to share my screen and maybe show you some real-time example. At the end of the day, we need to know what is the single unit cost now to produce one product. And that is what we call cost per item. So how do you go about it? I'll be interested. Let me see something. And while on it, I'm curious to know, for anyone in this stream, what is more confusing to you? Fixed cost, variable cost, or they don't make all the sense? I'm just creating like this stream. Okay. There's so many. Okay. Let me know, what is more confusing to you guys? Fixed cost or variable cost? So that in case someone missed something, I can be able to address it. And something else, just to say, I'm a certified accountant. So based my knowledge based on business consulting and as an entrepreneur. And then again, there's beauty right here. ILO SYB, start your business. And if you're joining the stream and you're wondering what we're doing is, we are talking about business planning section, which is called costing and planning for your business. Let me know what you think. Or do you even have an idea for the same? Does it make sense? Or if it doesn't, you can also say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. It'll be very beautiful to interact with you guys. Let me know, which is more confusing? Which confuses you most? Fixed cost or variable? Because I know. So I've gone to some trainings before, and even myself with also other entrepreneurs, and they sit there and sometimes they're like, oh my God, how do you classify this? How do you go about this? But the thing is, it's important to know the classification. So for me, the hack that I use, I brings in an external accountant, because technically, accounting has never been my favorite topic unless money is coming in. I love seeing money flow in the bank. But I know that I'm not really good with numbers, but I can do basic numbers. I can do basic models. But when you go, or what we'll be going to the next phase, if we're going to complicated stuff, I call David, who is my best friend. So I'll be like, hey, David, he also happened to be the one of the person who does our books. I need your help with this. We brainstorm, because he is sharp. He is qualified CPA and CPS. So even for you guys, when we are starting, you don't really need to be concerned that maybe this might sound a bit confusing. What you need is to understand or get the grip. First, know your cost, because even if you get an accountant, an external accountant later on to help you with this process, if you don't understand the basics, you cannot guide your accountant. So it's very necessary, because even accountants, they might be very gifted the way David is, but if you don't understand this essence, then you will lose yourself, you lose your business. So it's very essential. But once your business starts to grow, then you can always have someone who maybe they have based on accounting, they will help you. So what is more confusing? Variable cost or fixed cost? I see someone saying variable cost, very interesting. Variable cost, variable cost, variable cost. I happen to come from the mountain, and we have a problem between those two letters. So if you hear me sleeping, come on, don't laugh at me. Be kind to me. Because I'm sure if you are Kenyan and you're a stream, then you must struggle with one of the words. Trust me. But I'll go back to the variable cost and fixed cost. We said variable costs are those that fluctuate with production volume, sales volume, or amount of services you provide. For example, raw materials, packaging, wages. I'll give you an example. So here at Afrifama, is that time when we will go to buy raw materials in bulk. The very first, and this is very funny a bit. So when I started animal feeds production, we started with the prototyping phase. I didn't have any money. So what I did is I had identified the suppliers in one of the central region. So when I went there, I just needed, I had done, again, costing, which is also essential, but I've also done costing based on the nutrition aspect of the animal feed I was making. But I only needed 100 kg. So you can imagine they just packed it in just one bag, and that was it. And it cost me, I don't know, less than 2,000-3,000. And the next day I came to Afrifama premises. Thanks God I still had the machineries, but it was so funny that I could only afford 100 kgs, but I had machineries worth, I don't know, very expensive, because to set up the whole operations, it's very. But a few years later, when we went back, we went now for like 4.8 tons. From now, I think 100 kgs, that is 4,800 kgs. So the very first time, what we paid was very less. But since after 1 year, after we had secured some investment, when we went back, we actually paid a very huge lump sum, which I've ever paid in my life. Which I hope in that answers, you're getting to understand the gist, the variable, you know. The very first, we just needed very little, 100 kgs. But if I needed 4,800 kgs, then that increases. But just for the raw materials alone, if I was now considering the amount it costed me to process those materials again, you will also see, because for the first one, I only did one batching, which was just for the prototyping phase. But for the next one, I think we must have done more. If our machine is doing less than 500 kgs in 30 minutes, I think we did a lot of processing. So in terms of the labor, was high the roof, because now the first time I only had myself and someone else helping me. But the next time I had to have like 2 or 3 people who are involved with the bagging, the weighing, the packaging, the whole process. And that's more additional cost. The machines need to run more time than the previous rate. That's more cost. I hope now it's making sense what I'm talking about, the variable. So those are the prices. But if I was to look, we started with that production of 100 kg. If I was paying for the warehouse, which I'll go for the record by the moment I wasn't, because a very good gentleman in this live stream saw the dream we were building, and trust me, we could not really afford to pay for a warehouse. I'll go for the record for the same. And he was like, I see your vision. I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a space. So you develop your idea, because we see how it's going to help the society. We see the problem you're solving, and we see once you scale, what it can do to the local economy. And that gentleman is in this stream, which I keep saying is a very honorable sir. And I'm very grateful. He keeps saying I don't need to tell him that, but I also keep saying, as long as you're alive, you need to give people their flowers. But let's assume the honorable sir did not help us with the warehouse. I was going to pay for that warehouse. And anybody here, I'd love to know if Miss Anita, if you're still on the stream, or anyone else who is into business, how much you'd pay for warehouse. Would you know, even if we'll cap that warehouse, let's say at just 4,000 or 5,000. So whether you produce for 100 kgs or whether you did not produce that, you'd still pay, even let's say 1,000, you'll still pay that 1,000. So that is a very fixed cost. It will never change, no matter what. Unless that moment you'll say, we have really grown, we now need to expand. But even if you expand to go to another building and rent more space, it will only increase for one time. But for the next 1 year, it keeps staying the same, because that doesn't vary. But for the other cost, which varies, they keeps on changing. I hope that makes sense. So Ms. Lou is saying, there's obviously a number I cannot go below. And you tend to talk about fixed cost, variable plus a certain profit margin. Yeah, you need to be careful. If you're not careful, you will collapse. And for me, that is usually one of my biggest worries. You don't want to see business collapsing. We are operating in a very brutal economic in terms of the policies, so it can be tough, but you certainly don't. So before I digress then, once you know about your costing, the next bit you need to do is you need to do costing based as a manufacturer and costing based as a service provider. So as a manufacturer, there is always a template, and I keep saying, I'll share it with you. This is whereby you tend to input, for example, and you are working now this time, for the first time, you're working with the estimates. So you do your fixed estimate, that is fixed cost per month. You also do total variable cost for the business per month. And then you are able to join the two. I know this is very tough. Allow me, I'll try to create something in our website or something I'll put for people who are always on this stream, which will develop with our developers, so that something like this, it can be easy to understand. But I'll just mention something in terms of how you go about estimating. ILO says when you're estimating variable cost for your item, you need first to do the following. You need to list all the inputs that have cost, which will fluctuate with production per volume. So you just list them down. So assuming I'd love someone to tell me the business they're doing, but most people are so shy, so I'm forced to use Afrifama case study. I didn't want to, because I might be too selfish. I'd love someone to tell me what business they're in, and possibly we can try to work with that. But while we're still on that, you need to list down, for example, if it was here at Afrifama, I would list down maybe the raw materials, I would list down the cost of electricity, I would list down the packaging cost, because I was literally, I would even like, let's list this. There is, let me just check on our sheet for animal feeds production. There's a way we usually itemize it. So in terms of a variable cost, what varies? One, it's the raw materials. Then 2, we have the transport cost, obviously. And then 3, actually for us, transport cost is not variable, it's fixed cost, because we have agreed with the driver, even if he transports 1 ton, 2 tons, even 10 tons, he charges around, I think 20,000. What's 20,000 in USD? I'd love our moderators to do that. So that's variable. So what I do is, for me, when I'm determining to know how much should I assign for this product, so I usually work with a maximum capacity that is 10 tons. And I know if I do 10 tons, or maybe I do around 8 to 10 is enough. I've been able to divide that cost, and I know every kg it's going to cost me to transport from sourcing to the warehouse. So that's a big fixed cost. It doesn't change. Even if I go higher or lower, he says it's the same. Now, in terms of the packaging, in terms of the labor, we've also assigned the value depending on how much we've worked. In terms of also the marketing, in terms of other overheads and electricities. So those for us are some of the variables, and we have to categorize them. And even what I'm looking is only that is proprietary data for us, so I can share this, but you have to do that. So what do you do once you've listed them? You need to get cost of purchase for each unit. So it's what you are saying, you know. So let's give you an example for packaging. So if I'm buying 90 or 20 shilling for a 10 kg bag of packaging, then I'm able to divide it by 10, and I'm able to know, okay, it cost me, we can even say like a bag. For us, it cost us around 0.6 shilling per kg to do packaging. So we have to make sure that we understand all those costs. From transport, from packaging, all the way to the distribution, all the way to the overheads. It's the same thing you need to do. Now, once you've done that, and obviously there is a column, it's only that I'm not in a position to share this, but I promise you guys, I'll share this template. I'll do an email. So if you're interested, you can just drop your comment below. So we can definitely always share the email to you. Now, once you do that, then you need to estimate the quantity of input needed to make one good or service. So, if I'm making 1 kg of animal feeds, let's say we have 4 products. So we have chick mash, growers, layers, and Kenyan mash. My favorite is K mash because ours is very perfect, and this is not even marketing. So I need to know, to make this 1 kg of K mash, what kind of materials do I need? Because remember, we use materials for source of protein, source of energy, as well as micronutrients, and these are very essential for digestion, multivitamins, etc. Now, remember when we started by saying you need to assign or list down all these materials. You also, the second one, you have assigned this cost. Now, for me, based on our formulation, I know, for example, a bit of water break. I'll give you an example. I know there is a certain percentage of crude protein or protein. There is a certain percentage of maybe, let's say, maize, wheat, pollen, or even maize germ, or even rice porridge. There is that percentage. So I multiply that percentage by 1 kg of that product. And by doing that, imagine, let's say something like K-mash, you can't believe it has more than 8 byproducts which are involved. Starting from the source of protein, the way we've talked, the source of energy, calcium, etc., and other multivitamins. And by doing that, I'm able to know for every kg produced, I'm paying X amount of money. The same case for you. You need to estimate that. And once you do that, the column which we are going to share, you put it in. Lastly, they said you need to calculate cost of each input, which you've done, and then calculate the variable cost per item by adding, which again we described. So I hope you guys you get the gist. And ultimately, if you could be able to see what I'm talking about, it's wow, seeing it, but it is. I'll give you, and it's good. I've actually gotten a case study, and that's what I was looking for. Can help. So before we got into this, we've been using city garbage collectors, which is amazing business. And here they say city garbage recyclers is going to make two types of compost fertilizer. One is moderate amount of nitrogen packed in 20 kilogram bags with the title organic. The other with higher amount of nitrogen packed in 10 kilogram bags with the title super organic. So they use the same concept which we've used earlier on, whereby you're able to populate the data we talked about. And you see, for example, in terms of the input, they're using waste, vegetables, chicken manure, second-hand bags, labor. So, and in each column, cost of purchase, they are able to input exactly how much this is going to cost. And by the end of the day, they will be able to add all these all together. And then they're saying the variable cost for those items, it's 6.05. Now, for the fixed cost, obviously, since this is fixed and covers every activities which is done in that, you later on need to divide by everything which is there. And that you'll be able to determine what is the fixed cost per item. And ultimately, you add the variable cost with this fixed cost which you have found, and then you get your cost. I know, numbers, and can be confusing. But that's what it is. And once you've done that, then you can jump to financial planning. And in financial planning is whereby you'll be able to make a profit plan, you'll be able to make a cash flow plan, you'll be able, of course, to compare the financial records based on the actual performance and the future performance. So how do you make a profit? I mean, come on, guys. I shouldn't be asking you that because, I see, Ms. Duo, you're saying rent space is one of our biggest fixed costs. Okay, definitely. So 20,000, that's around 155 USD. Yeah. So you can imagine that. Then we need to divide this in terms of the units we are shipping. So if we are paying that, and he says, this time we say we don't have money, so we will only ship how many? Maybe 10 kgs, not 10 kgs, come on, 5 tons. So we need to divide that by 10 tons to be able to know the variable cost in terms of every kg ships. I hope it's making sense. So in terms of profit plan, typically in this, you just need to understand how much profit are you making in any product that you're producing. So how do you get profit? Simple. Sales minus cost. Sales minus cost gives you profit. And we've discussed, for example, sales. Sales is that price point Ms. Duo was trying to discuss how she does it, or how I told you we do it ourselves. Cost is what we've discussed here. Your variable price fixed cost, then that is what is costing you as a manufacturer, as a provider for goods and services. Then you just need to less cost from the sales. You get your profit. Now, what is important here is what we call a sales plan. And again, what is a sales plan? So a sales plan shows sales your business is likely to have in each month. When planning your marketing, which again we did, you need to estimate the price you will charge for your goods and services, and also the sales of volume, your goods and services per month. For the sales plan, you are able to classify all the months. Then you are able to, for example, okay, this was a case for like city garbage recyclers. They're talking about the sales price, sales volume, which again is just more of, I'm trying to think how to put it. Let me take water to think through this, guys. That's why we needed Mr. Oloch for this session. I'll try to get him to call with him because I know he is super fast for the same. So with the sales plan, I think they were doing an illustration for that company we were talking earlier on. And you can see the sales in terms of this is how many units they sell. Every month you can be able to do a projection. So if you do a proper marketing and everything, how many units do you think you're going to sell next month? How about next month, Baton? For me, I try to do it quarterly. So I can do a bit of constant based on my future projection for the first 3 months. Then I have an increase maybe for 5 to 10%. Because remember, when you're planning, don't be too greedy. Planning is a tool which is supposed to help you be able to implement your business. Now, if you're too greedy and you're not honest, how much days or how much sales you're going to make from next month, then you are going to fall flat into the face. And you don't want that, guys. So that's why it's essential. When you're doing this, you do proper research, you do proper marketing research. This is whereby you have to involve even your term. This is a total market which you are targeting in the future. You need to do a good case study, understand how big that market is, what is the potential. So if you are to do A, B, C, D, exactly how much money or how much sales can you do in a given month? And then you do for the same for at least a year. And once you do that, then just populate your sales volumes. And obviously, then that's what you can be able to call your sales plan. And obviously, for this one, they have been able to populate for everything. They have 4 products. If you have 1 product, you can do the same. Now, if you're joining this stream for the first time, trust me, this is the most confusing stream you'll ever find for the first time because you're wondering, what exactly am I speaking about? So we are talking about costing, which is part of financial planning, which again is part of the business planning, which we said earlier on in the week. And we have been discussing how you can be able to do it yourself. But I also noted is if it's very hard, then you can always get an external accountant to help you. But the caveat was, even if you bring in an accountant and you don't understand the basic cost yourself, the margins involved, if you don't do the research yourself, then it's like you're shooting yourself in the leg. You'll never run. And as a business, you don't want to do that. Now, lastly is the cost plan. So sales plan, we've said, is a projection of your sale for the next 12 months of how much product you're going to sell in terms of volume based on the pricing, and then you get to see the sales. And of course, you can even add it and say, in that given year, we are projecting this amount of sales in terms of volume, and this is the total sales which you do. Now, the cost plan is definitely the opposite of the sales plan. And the cost plan is now what we were discussing, but now you need to do it every month. Month 1, we are going to spend this and this and this. But for you, you need to classify this into variable, into fixed cost, and then add them. But remember, they are going to vary because they are also tied based on the sales plan. And why am I saying that? Remember when we say when you're planning ahead, you've done a certain percentage increase based on what your thoughts are. So if you say in month 2, we are going to sell a 5% more extra product than month 1, then I don't expect your cost plan for month 2 to be the same as month 1. I hope that makes sense. And trust me, guys, I keep saying business planning is one of the toughest things you can ever do. I keep hearing people say, help me with a business plan, and I look at them. Guys, that is the toughest thing you can do. Even myself, it drives me insane. I just know I have to do it, but it's tough. But should it scare you? No. But you need it, especially for this, because I've just figured out the amount of time you need to get it right. When we are in the middle of expansion, that's for animal feeds and company generally. So when I was trying to do the whole planning session, and this is the modeling, the financial models for the whole costing, it took me so many weeks to get it done. Sometimes I couldn't even get enough strip, but I just knew I needed it. Then once I was done, I had to also call the external accountant to go through the numbers. And even sometimes my co-founders were there. And even one of the amazing ladies, this is Stella, which happened to be in our team. And we all sit down at very late at night. We're looking at our screen like this. Our eyes are literally red. And we're like, what the hell are we doing here? But we knew it was important, so we just had to crack it. Sometimes you're doing your cost planning, because remember, as opposed to what most guys think, it's not about populating your data saying A, B, C, D. No, it doesn't work like that. For this one, you have to be careful. This is a real cost. And if you're not careful, then it's not gonna cut in. So I hope you understand what I mean by that. Let me take another water break. I have less than 10 minutes and then we can finish the live. So I know there are people who have been here in this live for a very long time. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. Just a minute and then we're done, because I'm also beginning to get tired. Meanwhile, if you have a question, or if you love this live stream and you've not subscribed, why are you not subscribing? I never believe I'd ask people to subscribe, but I just need to reach as many people as possible. And you can actually help us to reach them by subscribing, by liking this live stream, and that's all. Typically, if you are advising a case, you will be paying between 20 to 25 USD, that is per hour. I mean, I've consulted, so that's what I do when I'm not here full time. So it's very expensive, especially if you're starting. And that's why you see most of what we're talking here is more generalized. But as a personal level, it just gets tied to what you do exactly. And you get a minimum of like 2 hours so for a coach to get you understood. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Why have you not subscribed? You're getting free knowledge and free insight from an entrepreneur and a builder. I'm just saying, that is best if you like it. But if it's not something that you like, come on, don't feel pressure. I'm just saying, all right? So once you've done that, the next thing is what we call, let me just put this one here. So you guys, you can be able to see me. The next bit is what we call cash flow plan. So cash flow plan is a forecast of how much cash you expect to come into and go out of your business each month. The cash flow plan helps you to make sure that your business does not run out of cash at any time. There are many reasons that your business may run out of the cash. For example, you have to build a factory or buy equipment or raw materials before you sell anything. That means cash goes out before cash comes in. Then, if you give credit to your customers, you do not get paid immediately, which again means cash goes out, cash don't come in. So this one, and I came to learn this from our investor, which is a very amazing gentleman. It's very essential to know how money is going to influence your business, even before you start that business. Why is it so important? Because if again you're not careful, I've even seen it. Sometimes even I try to be careful and I don't know why sometimes. I hope as we scale, it's because for us it's based on the level we scale sometimes, and also due to the fact sometimes we got swindled money. It's for another story. You will run out of money if you're not careful. And that can have a detrimental effect. You'll not be able to meet your key objective for your business. And most of the time, this is going to tie down a lot of production processes, and this is not a good thing. But how does this happen? There are different scenarios. One is if you are scaling very crazy like Afrifama. Eventually, one way or another, if you are scaling very fast like Afrifama, I'm mentioning because it have happened to me. And I keep saying I don't want to give you guys stories at Jabba. If you are Kenyan, you know what that means. But if you have a foreigner, stories at Jabba is simply there's this guy who consumes cat, and once you're high, the stories you tell don't make sense because they are based on your imagination. I don't want to do that when I'm giving you this insight. I've seen a scenario whereby we've run out of working capital simply because either A, we scaled too fast, which means we had to invest so much into the infrastructure. We had maybe to invest too much into the labor, or maybe the advisory, which I keep reminding you guys, advisory is expensive. You should see my lead advisory for animal feeds, but a very amazing gentleman, regardless. 2, if you give credit to your customers. If you give credit to your customer and they're not paying money, it means all your working capital is outside. So what do? One is you need to sit down and be honest and have a forecast. For example, where are these cash sales are going to come from? If you have multiple products, you need to list them down. Then ultimately, then you need to say, for example, we go back again to that plan we talk about your sales plan. If you had projected in the first month, you're doing X amount. So out of those X amount that you're going to sell, are you going to be paid all in cash, or do you think there is that? And this is the inflow, by the way, so before I lose you. For the cash which is coming inside the business, so or are you going to be paid later on? And if it's later on, which month will that money come in? It's very essential. Then for the money going outside, for example, if you have to buy for the raw materials, if you have to buy, if you have to pay for the labor, if you have to pay for the maintenance, and any other related, whether it's a fixed cost or variable cost, the question still remains, have you classified it down in terms of the months? So once you do that in terms of the month, then you are able then to review this plan and then see if in a given year, will you end up in a cash flow positive or cash flow negative? And don't get me wrong, it's not necessary that you get cash flow positive even for the first 6 months. Why? We talk about whereby maybe one day you're doing an infrastructure development. you're spending so much. But you need to understand, once you have this money, how is it being spent? And this is one of the key areas I've spent, like as an Afrifama, as we look forward with expansion. You're sitting down and you're just doing the maths and doing it, and you're seeing there are things we call work plans. And you can actually do a whole work plan for 4 months ahead before you even start. And then in those work plans, you're able to assign activity A. For example, if you are to build a warehouse, so how much does a warehouse cost you? Activity B. And again, when does it start? So if the first week of the month, you state that. How much is it? X amount. So this is X amount going out of the business. It needs to be stated. Then for the others, for the labor and everything else, you all put it in. But in that given month, is there money coming in? If it's zero, it's just zero. You just have to put it. Why? It helps you with the decision making. It helps you with the future planning. All those things we were discussing before. I hope now you understand what I mean about the cash flows. Cash coming in, cash coming out, and you doing the same analysis and fulfilling this in the next 12 months, because that is essential. So, and obviously you usually have something, what we call cash at the beginning. This is when now I'm going deeper into the journaling, which I don't want to do. I promise I'll bring an accountant to do that. So you usually have cash at the beginning of the session, and at the end of the day, what is left. And most of the times, if you talk about these terms about debits and credits, bankers will tell you that, how that works. So don't need to worry about, but for you, you need to see how that money is flowing. So guys, we've talked so much. Let me know if this stuff are making sense. Are they even helpful? Someone is saying, what confuses you more? Okay, that was a poll, which we did finish. Meanwhile, as I come to the end of this stream, I would love to know if you have any question or any insight from next speaker to speaker. Now, once you've done that, they're talking, these are just, cash flow plans, which you talked about, cash flow plan for that organization. And maybe to give an example, how this cash flow looks like, we can have like cash at the beginning of the month, which is like around 47,200 USD. Then cash from the sales, there's zero, cash from credit, zero. And this is in a given month of April. Then if we go for the total cash in, the top purchase for the goods, it's zero. Then when we go to, for example, salaries, there's an amount. Purchase of the equipment, there's an amount. Loan repayment, there's zero. Other repayment, there's an amount. So you are able to do all the tally for the total cash out, and then you can be able to see what was the cash at the beginning of the month and what is the cash at the end of that month. So is it a deficit or is it whatever it is? And that's also, you go to the next month and you'll be able later on to carry it over and do your deduction. I know it's a lot of numbers, but that's what entrepreneurship for you. And this is why I keep saying I have a lot of respect for anyone who starts a business. Because sometimes we start a business when we don't know all these things. And if you're not careful, they will bite you at the end. But I say I have a lot of respect because we have seen people who have started businesses and they don't understand about this concept and they actually do well. But now the problem is for such business, once they want to scale, then they run into the problems of they're running out of cash sometimes. So entrepreneurship, it's not easy, guys. It's not. I know if you watch my vlogs into animal feeds, you'll say, wow, what a guy, all poultry, but it's hard. If you see me when I look like this, it's very mental, but it's very rewarding at the same time. I don't imagine like I'll be doing anything else in my life if it wasn't entrepreneurship. But the more you think about these numbers, the more you're like, damn, It's you just need to get it right. If you don't get it right, your customers will get it right for you. Do you know how they get it right for you? They profiteer from you. So I hope you guys make sense and why it's good. Now tomorrow, I'll try to come back and finish on required startup capital. So we'll get to just look into, of course, I'll summarize this before I finish, but we'll get to look into the capital of investment. This is, I mean, remember we're still talking about the business plan. So before you forget, so we'll get to look about what is investment that you are looking at, for example, for this business, and then again, how do you raise this investment? So this is the types and sources of startup capital. So we are going to look into that tomorrow. But even in the future lives, I think I'll still talk more on investments. I'll still talk more on bootstrapping, fundraising, angel investment, venture capitals, there's VCs, and even grants. Because these are some of the things Afrifama has benefited. Because trust me, guys, I don't have all the money in the world. Remember, I started a business, I went bankrupt. And I've had to reinvent myself again and again and again. And most of the things us we've been doing is they need a lot of money. So I've had, when I started, for example, and now this is making me go deep into it, which I didn't. I had to raise money, bootstrapping on my own. Then later on, I had to bring in a partner. Again, they contributed their money. Then along the way, we graduated from sole entrepreneurship to partnership to a limited liability company. And again, we got our first big investor. But also along the way, I've also raised grants money because I need. If you are into the kind of business we are in, and most of the time in quote, they say grant entrepreneurs. No, we are not. You will understand if you are creating a prototype, if you are creating an MVP, this is a minimum viable product. It drains you. It needs a lot of money. So if you don't have enough money for you, you might not go ahead. I know mostly in businesses, sometimes we say if you want to scale, then you have to invest back your profits. I don't disagree with that. But then how long will you take? Especially if you're going even in technology. That's why you see these companies going out there and raising money. So they're able to finance, they're able to bring in more people, they're able to implement this business plan which we are talking about. So we'll go deeper into that. So don't miss out on that. Of all the session you'll ever want to miss out, don't miss out, because I'll even give you the name of organizations which you should look out for, especially in terms of the grants and even for a bit of financing. I know banks are hard. If this is your first time and you want to implement your business idea, the rates are very high, they are crazy, and most of the time they kill a business. So keep tuned in for that. Now, I believe this must have been one of the most intensive topics because it's hard to discuss something if you're not really showing it. But the basis for it is to show you the basics. For one-on-one session, I'll just I'm gonna do one-on-ones, but if you have a very dire case, and for me, I usually take mostly cases into agribusiness studies because that's where my domain is. You'll have to pay $25. So that's why you need to ask questions in most of these lives. Because for me to sit for 1 hour to listen to you or give you advice, right? And not even just me. You see, for those people who are certified by SYB, we call them business coach, across Saharan Africa, that's the lowest leg you can get. There are even people who charge 50 USD to 60 USD for an hour for the same. So if you still feel you need more help into business planning, into writing, coming up with a good proposal for your business, I would still suggest you just look for someone who maybe is deeper into the same. Because I say what we've been doing is more generalized and it's not per case. But you, at least I believe by now, you will have understood. But if you prefer I listen to you, then I think you can always, like, there are my socials out there. We can always talk. But I think in the next few weeks or months, I might be getting very busy. So that's why I keep encouraging. Come up to these lives, ask the question. If I pop for 30 minutes, 45, I'm done. We're good and easy. But should you want to go further, you might need to part with that. But anyway, I just hope this is insightful and want to say thank you so much. I've got to go now. See you tomorrow. Let's finish up on the business planning. We'll talk about those financing options. And I'll also try to link the business plan template. And of course, if you want a further case, please DM me. We can see what we can do. And a good afternoon and good morning where you're watching from. Afrifama out. Bye-bye.